Hi folks, welcome to my channel. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. And for those who are new here, I'm S. Maxine Fisher, an author, fiber artist, entrepreneur, and lesbian mom of one. This is going to be another studio blog. I am coming on today to talk about an experience I had while starting my small business and why it is so important to support other artists and colleagues in your field, including ways that you can do that with no additional cost to you and minimal effort on your own part. This is part of a larger topic that I want to explore in upcoming videos about how we as a community, whether that's the LGBTQIA plus community, professionals or entrepreneurs in general, or artists, can support each other and how we are stronger when we work together for mutual benefit. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, especially considering the experience I just had, so stay tuned. First, I want to talk about me accidentally going viral. I want to discuss how that occurred to me, what went down, and my key takeaways from that as a small business owner and a member of the crafting community. I started my small business while I was on parental leave. Up to that point, I'd been a great consumer of knitting patterns, particularly for very intricate lace shawls that I would never consider selling because they would probably be worth hundreds of dollars by the time I got through with them. But when we found out that we were having our son, I just went rogue and started knitting him all these little sleepers and overalls. At some point, I stopped even using patterns because I was just freehanding things and furiously knitting baby clothes, which, by the way, he no longer fits into. Any parents on here can probably relate. um, it occurred to me during that process that if I'm putting all this much effort into creating my own designs and recording the stitches for me to use again, that I may as well try to write them down so that I can be able to share them, or even just for my own personal use. So after some time, and I discovered the intense growth rate that happens among infants, my work started turning toward making small toys for him and to making plushies in general. I'm going to share this little clip that I actually recorded back in the summer when I started crocheting and YouTubing in earnest and making attempts to sell my creations. So this is one of my latest Pride theme creations, and it is a little turtle. So I used African flower design to make these flippers, and I love it so much. I freehanded this one, but I had to go back and count every stitch to write the pattern because when I posted it, a million people commented on my post asking for the pattern. Clip, and you can clip onto your purse. It opens up into a bag. So I don't know if you can see the neck coming out. And you turn it inside out and you have a full-sized shopping bag. And you can see this is actually a really good sized market bag. Here, now you can see it next to my head. It's bigger than my head. Initially I just freehanded everything, kind of jotted my notes and scrabble on a notebook, and then I posted like a brag picture of it on a crochet group I was part of. Over 200 people within the space of a couple days commented on my post saying, "I love this, it's brilliant, pattern please." And people outright asked me to write the pattern and publish it, saying, "Hey, I will buy this, I will test it for you if you want me to." So that was not only really encouraging, but it got the wheels in my head turning that maybe I should try to write out and publish this pattern. Yeah, I was shocked, not to say the least. So not wanting to give up what seemed to be a golden opportunity, I hurried up and drafted the pattern out. It turned out, the process of writing it out turned out to be pretty complicated. Not only because the project itself had a lot of detail, but because I realized at that time I had never before written a crochet pattern, or even read one in many years for that matter. I'd read a lot of knitting patterns, but there were certain stitches that I wasn't sure if I needed to explain, like increases and decreases. It had, I had gone back to crocheting after many years of just exclusively knitting. So I wasn't 100% confident with my work, and I definitely did a lot of a very extensive testing phase to make sure that that pattern was saleable and publishable and readable for that matter. Um, I also did a lot of research to make sure it had all the pieces of information in it that someone else would need to recreate my design. Once I did that, I put out a testing call to a handful of people, mostly the folks on that Facebook page who had offered to test for me. And I don't know if I did that testing call right in retrospect because it resulted in kind of a lot of chaos. I was getting messages in the middle of the night while I was feeding my baby, people who were right in the middle of the project having questions about the round they were on, and I'd have to kind of take a break from what I was doing, go pull up a copy of my pattern, which I did not store somewhere handy, and figure out where the mistake was so I could direct them to do it correctly. Sometimes I literally just had to pull out the turtle bag and look at it and, do the old person thing, take my glasses off and try to figure out what stitches I did. And most of the time, I think I gave them the correct information. Um, so that was my process of the steep learning curve of learning to publish a pattern. Fast forward over a month from my original post, I finally had this pattern cleaned up, polished, readable, all the, all the process photos cleaned up and in place, and hopefully error free. Um, Based on the feedback from my testers, I could confidently say it was error free. So I published it on Ravelry. I listed it on my Etsy shop, and I even listed it on my Ko-fi shop that I no longer use. I sold a few copies, and then nothing. It went dead. I was I was devastated because I'd put a lot of work into this pattern, but honestly, I wasn't surprised. There's a lot of cool posts out there. So every time someone sees something they like, they say, pattern please. But how many people are really going to care enough about something they viewed over a month ago and actually go back, find it, and want to put down money to get that pattern when mentally they've probably moved on? So I kept crocheting. I built up my shop, and I'm part of the queer community. So a couple of things that I've made actually sold really well on Etsy, including a Jewish kippot, which I'm actually making one here. It's not completely full size because it's not finished, but they're the yarmulkes or skull caps that folks wear in synagogues. Um, and Packers are another popular item that I've been making. So recently I ran a sale right before Valentine's Day, and I got so many orders for Packers for transgender and non-binary folks that I started panicking because my hands really couldn't move fast enough to crochet all these orders that were coming in. And at that point I seriously thought about maybe I need to put my shop in vacation mode if I get any more orders, just so I don't miss or overshoot the deadlines for shipping and risk getting a bad review. Um, a couple of people who ordered from me reviewed my products, and they actually gave me great reviews, which was also really helpful. Um, Boosted my confidence a lot. I feel like my work is pretty good quality in general, and I can tell the difference between a well-made plushie and something that's crafted by a beginner. But when it comes to making something very detailed, like gender affirming accessories that somebody else will be wearing and using, it was very important for me to get the measurements right, to make the product comfortable to wear and functional, for it to look and feel realistic, where somebody wasn't going to find it awkward or bulky or too big or too small. So those who posted reviews, thank you. Thank you. That does mean a lot, and any feedback really helps me to design something that is made with you in mind. Um, but it was the week that I had all those orders drop. I had a repeat customer purchase something from my shop, and they actually made one order and then placed a really large second order. But after I shipped their first order, they reached out to me panicking because somehow they had entered the wrong address for shipping. Not such a big deal. If it's a little plushie, it can be probably remade at minimal expense, but this was a gender-related personal item with somebody's name and address on it, which could potentially be a safety issue for them. Not to mention just all kinds of weird if somebody else opens your package by mistake because it goes to goodness knows where. So we ended up, I took care of it. We ended up having to pay $18 to do a package intercept with the U.S. Postal Service. which failed because instead of redirecting the parcel to them, to that recipient's address that they put in, USPS just marked it return to sender and mailed it back to me, meaning I'd have to then pay to ship it again. So I held their second order and I was looking out for this parcel. On the tracking data said it was out for delivery, and it was out for delivery 2 days in a row. So the second day the mail came and it didn't arrive. So I made a few phone calls, and then finally I went down to my local post office the next day with the baby to see if I could retrieve this package before it goes to dead mail. Now, fortunately, my son was a great sport about it, and he just smiled and giggled and waved at people. And our postmaster was very helpful. She actually knew my name since I ship a lot, and she had processed the return herself, she said. And she said, I put it in your carrier's case. I know what it is. It's going out to you. It should be arriving today. So I went home, expecting to find the item waiting for me on the doorstep, and the mail came and went, and no package. So the next morning, 8 a.m., I go back to the post office with the baby to attempt to collect this personal accessory that I made for someone from the post office again. This time, I just stood there at the desk until they went and got my package, looked all over, found it. Thank goodness. It was much the worse for wear. Fortunately, it was only the packaging that was quite beat up, and the item inside was fine. So I opened it up, put the item in the box, put the item in the box with the person's second order, which I had already paid the additional postage for the additional weight, sealed it up, mailed it, problem solved. So I walk out of there feeling this sense of relief. I was finally caught up on the slew of orders that had come in during the Valentine's Day sale. I did some math and realized I had managed to net about maybe $30, maybe $60 per day during the last couple of weeks with all these outgoing orders. And it was really stressful. Like I said, I have a baby. I have a full-time job. I'm doing this in my free time. My wife works full-time. So I really pushed myself, and I'm wondering, okay, how long can I keep up with this? Because making physical items definitely is not you're supposed to pay yourself $15 an hour with pricing of your items, but that doesn't always happen, especially once you factor out expenses and running around and, you know, just all the downtime in between that's involved in running a small business. So feel like, how much longer can I really keep this up? And then my phone starts buzzing. And it makes that familiar bloop sound that means I got an Etsy order, which ordinarily would be awesome, but I just pull it up with a sense of dread because my hands are tired and my brain is tired, and I just got through this whole fiasco with the shipping address being wrong on the one. And I was like, oh, it's only like $3.50. Okay, one of my patterns sold. That's great. That means I don't have to do anything. Yay! So I log in my cash book and drive home, and I'm on my way. A few minutes later, bloop, and again, bloop. I'm like, wow, I just made $10 on my way home from the post office. Okay, that's pretty cool. And I'm finally selling these patterns. I had originally priced them at $6, so I'm happier selling 3 at 50% off than none at full price, right? I forget if I mentioned earlier in this video, but during, like, after the sale, I had ended sales on physical items and put my patterns on sale so I could get some passive income while I caught up. So back to topic. So the orders kept rolling in, and I have all my patterns on sale, but the one that's really selling is the turtle bag, and selling and selling. So I checked my analytics, and I was really surprised that most of my traffic was not coming from social media, where I was putting out, you know, my daily or couple times a week advertising saying, hey, I have this sale going on, buy these things while they're on sale. It was actually coming from Etsy and from offsite like Google, Pinterest, and YouTube. Not only was it coming from Google in the United States, but I was seeing Google hits from France, Sweden, Australia, and a few others that I did not even recognize. So the Etsy searches showed that people weren't stumbling on my pattern. They were actually searching for it, or searching for things like foldable turtle bag or crochet turtle. Um, and they were looking for this or something like it and coming directly to me. So that meant that somewhere someone had actually posted something that I had made, or at least something similar that was on Etsy, and traffic was coming through that visibility. In the next couple of weeks, I made a total of $483 from patterns on Etsy alone. I also made $81 on another pattern that I published, which was a jumping spider bag, and kind of based on the same basic idea. It was a collapsible bag and that folds into the spider. It has the head and little legs and like four safety eyes in the front. Um, Ravelry made me an additional $52. And then someone even found my obscure Ko-fi account, which had been completely dead since I set it up, and they bought a copy of the turtle bag off of there. So in total, I made $620 just selling crochet patterns. I found myself sitting up in the middle of the night, feeding the baby back to sleep, and my phone was still going off, and I was watching these Etsy orders roll in. It was a really surreal feeling. That following week, I was out sick from work, so I pulled back my sales for physical items so I wouldn't get backed up on orders before I could work again, and was not contagious, sending stuff out. And I don't work when I'm not feeling well. Um, so I actually started thinking more seriously about how much income would I realistically need coming in from my business to be able to justify doing this full time, because that's been my goal all along, is to eventually make this my main hustle, so to speak. I don't like the term hustle, but my main business, and potentially be able to retire while doing selling things on Etsy, going to craft fairs, etc. Of course, part of me was definitely focused on the realism, which is the fact that you really cannot base your future income figures all on the sale of one or two patterns. Because even if they're really popular right now, there is no guarantee that it will continue like that. So I would really need to see success across multiple income streams over a significant period of time in order to consider making my side hustle my main hustle. But I think it's good that I was in that mindset, because just when things were really peaking, bam, everything just died. Like all through Monday, I had over $200 in revenue just that day, mainly from pattern sales. And then suddenly on Tuesday, it was down to 20. And by Wednesday, it was like 5 or 10. So in retrospect, I think what might have happened was that one of the people who reviewed my turtle pattern also tagged me or posted some time-limited content about it on social media. Because I was getting hits from all over the internet, and a lot of people reached out saying, "Oh, I'm really excited to make this thing. Everybody in my family wants one." It's really a kind of an exciting time. But I think the reason why it then tapered off was probably the marketing that happened outside my control. It kind of expired. Facebook posts tend to fade away after a couple weeks. Instagram posts disappear after a day or two. So I'm not surprised that if that is what happened, or somebody had promoted it via their own website, that it definitely helped my sales peak, but then tapered off over time because it was time limited. My takeaway, first off, is that, thank you to whoever did that, if that indeed occurred. It really helped me, and it helped me to move my business forward to be in a much better place than I was even a couple of weeks ago. My takeaway as a small business owner is that you can never predict anything, and it's definitely best not to put all your eggs in one basket, or base your hopes or your future goals off of something that happens over a short period of time. Beyond that, I think it also really speaks to consumers and the need for customers of small businesses, and even business owners ourselves, to be supporting one another within the crafting community. Even for those of us who don't have an Etsy shop or a YouTube channel or any form of outlet for sales for our work. There's a lot of folks who make things handmade. Um, that, just for your own personal use. There is a huge amount of crochet artists out there, and most knit and crochet patterns include some verbiage from the designer saying, please tag me when you post your pictures because I would love to see your creations, or something to that effect. That's kind of twofold because yes, I absolutely want to see your creations. It is, to me as an artist, it is so inspiring to see someone take something I designed and make it their own. And it was really thrilling for me to even just go through the testing process with my bag patterns and other patterns I've tested and give somebody the instructions and see what they created with those instructions. Because ultimately it becomes your work and you put your own artistry into embellishing it and modifying it as you choose. But and besides that, um, what small business owners won't tell you is that crochet inspo, or inspiration, is really powerful online. There are entire groups on Facebook devoted to inspo pics as creatives just browse and get inspired to do their next project. A lot of those images, unfortunately, are actually stolen, or the patterns they link to are stolen, ripped off from a designer and resold by scam artists, or they may be designed by AI to get clicks. It's actually a really big problem on Etsy right now and other sites where people are copying a pattern that they may have purchased from the designer and then reproducing it and selling it on their own site. You can typically tell those what sites those are because they may sell a ridiculous amount of patterns that are kind of a mishmash of various different styles. And if you look closely at these designs, you see that they look like they are not all made by the same person. They may not reflect the same aesthetic. They may not even be the same type of craft. Um, Typically, there are artists out there, myself included, who do knitting, do crochet, do embroidery, but to have hundreds of patterns that are each their own aesthetic could indicate that that pattern is not being sold by the original designer, and you might want to do some research and make sure that that is actually the designer who's profiting from the sale of that pattern. It's a copyright issue, and enforcing it has been really challenging for the crafting community. So if you made, but it, I'm going to back up a little bit. If you made something that is designed by another artist, and you, as a crafter, go on your social media and show off pictures of your work, and then you link back to that artist's product or social media page, I guarantee you that you are helping their business immensely by doing just that. It can mean the difference between getting seen as an artist and versus no one knowing that your brilliant little crochet pattern even exists. Like I said, my pattern just sat there on Ravelry with no sales for months because I didn't aggressively market it, but I also don't have a huge following myself. I'm a upcoming artist. Um, but other people being able to make that and then showing off their bag and linking it back to True Color Studio and saying, here's the pattern designer, can increase visibility immensely because that is seen by other people within the crafting community. And if they want to go buy that pattern, then they can. So if you're shopping paid patterns, number one, please make sure you're purchasing from the actual pattern designer, not from someone who steals patterns and markets them as their own. And number two, please tag the author or designer anytime that you post on social media about your creations, because I know you do. We all do. I do it all the time. Even before I did small business stuff, I was always posting pattern pictures of my shawls. And in retrospect, I really want to go back and tag some of those where I was like, oh, I posted this huge, immense Eastern shawl, Eastern Star, Russian lace shawl that I made as a blanket for my kid. And I don't think I actually, hashtagged the designer. I really wish I had, and I definitely will in the future, because now I know how much that can help a small business to really take off. In rare cases, it may actually help somebody to go viral and may, we have, you see, uh, items that are frequently for sale at craft fairs, like, comes to mind the Mabel chicken or the loaf cat. Those became popular not just because they're awesome, but also because people within the crafting community shared the designer's design for other crafters to be able to use and replicate in their shops. Um, so it is a great way to give back to the community without any cost to yourself, is just tag your designers, support small businesses online. If you go to a craft fair and you see something you really like and you're posting pics of it, absolutely tag the artist. Um, well, this has been a very long video, so if you are still watching, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. As always, please be kind in the comment section to others, to me, and ultimately to yourself in the comments. Be kind. Stay fabulous and stay creative. Catch y'all next time. Bye!